Review copy provided by the architect. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I finally did it. I've played this game for roughly 365 days now. I finally finished 2020. This is my review. So for those who don't know, 2020 is a first-person survival horror game that came out earlier this year. We all know the marketing hype surrounding this title. We have seen the promises made surrounding this game. And finally, the embargo has lifted, and it is one of the worst games that I've ever played. It's just so bad. It literally took me 365 days to beat it from beginning to end. That's how long I've been playing. Like, who makes a game this long? The game length would be forgivable if the substance of the game itself was any good, but we're talking about 365 days of utter garbage from beginning to end. Putting the game length aside, let's talk about the individual components, starting with the story. So, the synopsis is that you're living in this post-apocalyptic world where there's like a pandemic that has spread and people are just kind of living in misery, and it's an interesting premise, but the way the story develops is so insane, unrealistic. Like, the sequence of events, you're just like, how am I supposed to believe any of this? Like, even by fiction standards, this game's story is bonkers ridiculous and takes you out constantly. Like, I wanted to immerse myself in this world, but seeing how all the narrative elements develop, I'm like, what is this crap? Like, how am I supposed to be emotionally invested in something that just utterly and completely fails to suspend my disbelief? Like, just to give you an idea for like some of the narrative beats you can expect, at one point, Kentucky Fried Chicken, yes, KFC, release their own game console, and that becomes a core narrative component of the overall story. Like, just the story in this game alone will piss you off, but then we get to the open world. So, because of the premise of this game, which is that you have to stay like indoors because of the pandemic, there's this beautiful open world out there. I mean, just full of life. There's just so much you can see from like the window of the house or home that you're forced in. You can see from there the majesty of the open world, but you're not allowed to explore it. The game doesn't allow you to explore it because of this like pandemic situation that they've set up. And so you can only go out for like not too long of a time. You can only spend time outside for just a short amount of time before you're forced to return home because your health depletes, or, you know, if you come in contact with other people, you might get infected and that might kill you. And so, like, you have to, like, wear this mask, and there's this, like, gameplay system called the social distancing system. So there are all of these NPCs out there who move very lifelike and have really great animations and character models and seem like they want to share some interesting stories, but you can't actually, like, talk to them, interact with them. You can't shake their hand. You can't hug them or anything, really. So it's like, there are all of these NPCs, but you're not allowed to really interact with them. You're not allowed to interact with the world. Like, what kind of developer does this? Where they craft all of these things, but discourage players from engaging with any of the content? And then we get to the actual core mechanics. The gameplay in this game is non-existent. Like, all I did was basically, like, my character just had to stay in his apartment and, like, do something. Like, my character was just, like, influencer or something, like a YouTuber, right? And so every day I'd have to like guide him to the computer or to his studio and like, I don't know, pick some dialogue options for the videos, and then like occasionally I'd like go shopping or order something for delivery for food, or I'd go to the bathroom and take a shower or take a shit. And like, that's the gameplay. Now, one cool little gameplay element was that the main character actually has a merch store. You go to like this website, yongya.com, and there's like this listing of really cool looking merch. And if you go to checkout and type in Yong Out 2020 and apply that, that is a discount code of 10%, and the last day to input the code was December 31st because it's a Christmas/New Year sale. So that was a really fun gameplay element. That's about the only positive thing I can say about this game. And I feel like there's a lot more gameplay that is out there in the open world, but again, because of the pandemic setup and the whole social distancing aspect, like, you're not allowed to like engage with the game's content. And so you're left with like the most bare bones video game ever made. Like those few times you do go out there in the open world, you can see all these establishments where you can see like all of the mini games that have been implemented but that you can't really engage with. And there's the main quest, it's like find happiness or something, but the game doesn't let you do that even. And the AI, by the way, is really questionable. Like I go outside, there's some people who are wearing masks, others not, amidst this like deadly situation. It just like doesn't make sense. Like you're looking at the AI, you're like, it's so inconsistent. What is going on here? And I've been told that the game has permadeath. So like if you die in this game, that's it. Your save file deletes itself, and also the game self-destructs, which is kind of crazy given how hard this game is. There's no checkpoints, there's no save system. This game is the Dark Souls of simulations, but not in a good way. It's difficult, but has none of the substance of a Souls-like. So you're left in a situation where the game teases you with this incredible open world that you're not allowed to really explore because of the gameplay systems that have been implemented and the narrative setup. And then when you're here in like your apartment or your home or whatever, there's not much to do in the only safe environment really. And so what you're left with is just this bare bones, empty feeling game that has so much potential outside of the confines it puts you in. I don't understand the mentality of like developing a game like this. It makes no sense whatsoever. The only thing I can compliment is the graphics. Like this is the most lifelike looking game I've ever seen. The lighting effects are incredible. The textures are sharp. The character models, like they're so just on point. Like you swear this is real life sometimes. And there's also the sound design. The sound is really realistic, and like there's really good like directional audio. I can like hear things, and the positioning of things really well. But the problem is that the graphics don't get to shine because the environmental variety isn't there. You're stuck in this like home, essentially. And when you try to go outside to the open world to try to see the environmental variety the game has to offer that the developers and artists put in, there's just... you don't have time to really like breathe it all in because you have to go back to your home and stay there. And it's just like there are only so many days I can look at the same environment before I go freaking crazy, you know? And same with sound design. Like all you hear are the same sound effects because you're kind of doing the same thing over and over again each and every day, or you're not allowed to explore the open world where you're probably going to hear all these incredible sound design elements that the developers have implemented. So the game just constantly gets in the way of itself, you know? And then finally, as far as replayability goes, so I've said before that there's a system in the game where if you die, your save file deletes itself and the game self-destructs. Same thing happens when you beat the game. Right after I beat the game just self-destructed. You're not allowed to like go back and redo it. But at the same time, given this is like one of the worst games I've ever played, maybe it's a good thing that the game self-destructs. Maybe that's more of a feature that is actually a positive thing under the circumstances. So the game lacks replayability, but in this case, that's actually a plus because this game is god-awful. Finally, bugs, technical issues. Honestly, sometimes I don't know where the bugs begin and the intentional game design elements end. You know, it all kind of blends together. Sometimes the whole game feels like a giant bug. You know, like, what kind of game is this, man? So what we're left with, ladies and gentlemen, is a game with an interesting narrative setup, but the gameplay is so basic and limits you constantly. The open world, it just like invites you to explore, but the game doesn't really allow you to. And the story... You like, it's straight up some of the worst writing I've ever seen. The story is at times predictable, and then the unpredictable elements are just so out there that you just don't buy it, you know? You really don't buy it. You don't feel emotionally invested in anything because everything's just pure chaos and kind of spit in your face. And when the dust settles, you're there just kind of left wondering, What the fuck just happened? Go play Fallout 76, go play Marvel's Avengers, go play the PS4 version of Cyberpunk 2077. That's a way better experience than whatever the hell this is. So, yeah, avoid this at all costs. I hope this has been a useful video for you guys, for those who were curious about this game, who are considering it. Avoid it like the plague. Thank you for tuning in, folks. For more video game news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.